Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like you gave someone your heart and they kept backing away? Like no matter how much love, time, or understanding you gave, they pulled back even more. You're not crazy. You're not too much. You're just dealing with someone who's emotionally avoidant, and that can feel like loving a ghost. But here's the truth. You don't need to chase, beg, or shrink yourself to be seen. What you need is power. And when you step into your power, you won't just make them miss you, you'll make them crave you madly. Have you ever noticed that the harder you try to get closer to an avoidant, the faster they seem to disappear? It's maddening, right? You pull your heart out, hoping they'll finally see how much you care, how deeply you're invested, but all they do is pull away. You're left wondering, did I say too much? Was I too available? Too emotional? But I want you to me loud and clear you were not too much. You were simply giving your energy to someone who isn't comfortable receiving it. And here's the twist: the key to making them miss you madly isn't doing more. It's about doing less, but with purpose. You see, avoidants are wired to protect their emotional independence. They value space the way some people value connection. So what happens when you chase them? You violate their inner system. Not intentionally, but emotionally, they start to feel overwhelmed, cornered, even smothered. That's when they go silent. That's when they vanish. That's when you feel like you're trying to hold on to fog. But instead of chasing harder, what if you did the opposite? What if instead of stepping in, you step back? When you pull back, not in anger, not in manipulation, but from a place of inner stability, you begin to shift the entire dynamic. You create a vacuum, a healthy emotional space that forces them to confront your absence. Not your silence as a tactic, but your stillness as a statement. That energy, that shift from needing to choosing, becomes magnetic. And they feel it deeply. Why? Because it's unfamiliar. You've interrupted the pattern. Avoidants are used to being pursued. They're used to having the emotional upper hand. The moment you take a step back, not in fear but in self-honor, you're saying without warhand. The moment you take a step back, not in fear but in self-honor, you're saying without words, I am not here to convince you of my value. I am the value. That's when their mind starts spinning. Wait, they're not texting. They're not checking in. Did they move on? And just like that, you become the mystery they can't stop thinking about. You reach out, hoping your effort will repair the distance. But with avoidance, every time you do that, you're reinforcing the very pattern that keeps them emotionally safe and keeps you emotionally drained. But here's where the power shifts: when you break the emotional pattern. When you stop reacting in the way they expect, you flip their entire narrative upside down. I think about it, they're pulling away, waiting for you to chase, to question, to beg. And then suddenly nothing. Silence, stillness. Not the cold kind, not the passive-aggressive withdrawal, but the strong, calm kind that says, I've seen this cycle before and I'm no longer dancing in it. This is not easy. It takes courage to break a pattern your nervous system is addicted to. But that's where change begins. When you pause instead of pursue, reflect instead of react, you're not just creating space, you're creating tension. And tension is what makes people take notice. It's what makes them feel. For the first time, the avoidant has to sit with something they're not used to: your absence and your non-response. And don't misunderstand, breaking the pattern doesn't mean playing games. It means standing in awareness. It means choosing emotional discipline over emotional chaos. You're not trying to punish them. You're trying to unhook yourself from a cycle that's been keeping you small, anxious, and waiting. Suddenly they start wondering, did I lose them? Why aren't they reacting? Why are they so calm? That curiosity is the seed of emotional pull. That uncertainty is the spark of missing. It disrupts their emotional autopilot and forces them to reconsider what you meant in their life. And if they truly valued you, they'll come closer. Not because you chased them down, but because you held your power. This is how you change the game. Not by yelling louder, but by shifting the energy. Not by doing more, but by choosing different. Because the moment you stop being predictable is the moment you start becoming unforgettable. Let's talk about something avoidants don't say out loud. They are often most attracted to what they fear they can't fully have. They are drawn to people who represent possibility but retreat from those who demand intimacy. So if you want them to miss you madly, don't just disappear, transform. Because what they really start to crave isn't just your presence, it's the upgraded version of you they never saw coming. While you're tempted to sit around and analyze every word they said, every breadcrumb they left behind, I want you to do the opposite. Use this space, this distance, not to obsess but to evolve. This is your turning point. Become the version of yourself that even you can't take your eyes off of. Physically, emotionally, mentally grow up and rise up. Not for them, not to prove a point, but because you finally realize what you deserve. Avoidants are often haunted by what they can no longer access, especially if it looks, feels, and sounds better than before. When you show them the version of you that is thriving without their validation, they begin to feel the void of your absence, not just the silence. They start to replay the connection in their mind, and then they see who you've become. Someone calmer, more confident, more selective. That's when their detachment turns into curiosity, and that curiosity becomes emotional friction. Wait, they moved on. They look different. They sound different. Did I underestimate them? And here's the truth, yes, they did. They underestimated your strength. They thought you'd always be waiting, always be available, always be the one to make it work. But now you've become the fantasy they never thought they'd lose. You're not just harder to reach, you're harder to replace. This isn't about revenge. This isn't about faking happiness or posting filtered pictures to get attention. This is about authentic elevation. When you genuinely start healing, building, and glowing, not for them, but for you, your energy speaks louder than any text ever could. You walk differently, you talk differently, you vibrate differently, and they feel that. Because avoidants don't miss who you were when you were chasing them. They miss who you become when you stop. That version of you, the grounded, glowing, evolving one, becomes the imprint they can't shake. That's the version they compare others to. That's the version they replay at night. That's the version they want and may not ever get back. So rise not to be wanted. Rise to become undeniable. They need to feel the door has closed, not slammed in anger, but gently, firmly, with finality. Not to provoke fear, but to communicate respect. And not just respect for them, but for yourself. Avoidants don't respond to pressure. They respond to presence, especially when that presence is suddenly gone. So when you step back, when you stop explaining, convincing, proving, and simply detach with grace, they begin to feel the shift. And that shift speaks volumes. Closing the door isn't about shutting them out forever. It's about no longer leaving it wide open while they come and go as they please. It's about boundaries, calm, unshakable, non-reactive boundaries. The kind that say you can reach out, but I'm no longer standing at the threshold waiting. That subtle but powerful change flips the emotional script. It tells the avoidant, often for the first time, your access to me is not guaranteed. See, they're used to your open door, the consistent messages, the warm check-ins, the energy that says I'm still here just in case. But once you shift that, once you become quiet, centered, and unavailable, unless they step forward with real intent, they start to feel the emotional lock click. That's when missing begins. Not when you say you've had enough, but when your energy no longer extends without reciprocity. It's not about going cold. It's about going clear. Clear in your standards, clear in your silence, clear in your worth. And when you stop chasing, you start teaching, not with anger, but with absence. Your stillness becomes a mirror. And suddenly they're left looking at a reflection they didn't expect. A version of you that no longer needs their half-love, their crumbs, or their confusion. And yes, they may knock. They may test the door again. But you're not shutting them out. You're just not standing on the other side anymore, waiting to let them in. That difference is everything. Because it says, if you want access to me again, you're going to have to knock with presence, consistency, and clarity, not fear, not guilt, and not games. This is how you create longing. Not through punishment, but through peace. When your energy no longer needs them, but your soul remains open to aligned connection, you become the kind of person they can't easily reach, and that is what makes them miss you madly. Need repels. It's one of the hardest truths to accept, especially when your heart is involved. When you deeply care for someone, especially someone avoidant, every instinct tells you, if I just show up more, love harder, stay consistent, they'll finally see me. But what you don't realize is that the more you reach from a place of need, the more they retreat. Not because you're not lovable, but because avoidants are wired to fear emotional demand. Your intensity makes them feel overwhelmed, not connected. That's why the shift from attachment to attraction is everything. When you begin to let go of the energy of need, that clinging, anxious feeling of I must have them, you make room for something far more powerful, embodiment. You start to show up from a grounded, magnetic place. You move from a place of wholeness, not emotional hunger. And that, right there, is the exact energy avoidants aren't expecting but can't ignore. And think of it like this: attachment chases, attraction draws in. The more emotionally stable and full you become within yourself, the more you stop trying to pull them toward you and start becoming the kind of person who naturally pulls everything toward them. Your energy changes, your focus changes. You stop overanalyzing their behavior and start channeling that energy into your passions, your growth, your purpose. That self-focus creates distance, but not the kind that pushes them away. It's the kind that makes them pause, makes them look back, makes them wonder, why aren't they reaching out anymore? Why do they seem happier without me? What are they doing that's making them glow? You've shifted from a seeker to a source. This doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop grasping. You stop trying to make them feel something and instead become someone they can't help but feel something for. Because people don't crave what's always available, they crave what's centered, aligned, and moving forward with or without them. So instead of asking, how do I get them back? Start asking, how do I get myself back? Your joy, your radiance, your calm, that energy, that embodiment of self-worth is rare. And avoidance, as detached as they seem, notice energy more than words. When you stop chasing and start being, your absence becomes a mystery, and mystery is irresistible. This is how you become magnetic. This is how you shift the story, not by doing more, but by becoming more you. There's a moment, quiet, powerful, unforgettable, when someone realizes the version of you they took for granted no longer exists. That moment hits different with avoidance, because they're not easily shaken. They don't respond to emotional outbursts, but they do respond to power, not forceful, not loud, but subtle, certain, undeniable inner power. And that power shows up the second you reclaim what they thought you'd never take back: your energy, your self-worth, your attention. For so long, they've felt in control. They knew you'd be there, no matter how much they distanced, how inconsistent they were, how many times they went say once you stayed. You waited. You forgave. You gave them emotional security without demanding emotional presence. But the moment you draw a line, not a threat, but a quiet declaration, everything changes. You stop trying to fix the connection. You stop looking for signs. You stop making excuses for their walls. And in that stillness, in that sacred silence, you do something powerful. You choose you. You choose healing. You choose clarity. You choose peace over patterns. And just like that, they feel it. It's not the kind of absence they're used to. This isn't you ignoring them, hoping they'll chase you. This is you no longer needing to be chosen to feel whole. It's you stepping into the realization that you were the prize the whole time. They just couldn't see it through the fog of their own fear. And that's when they start to miss you madly. Because what they remember isn't just your love. It's your softness, your patience, your loyalty. The way you made them feel safe without asking for much. And now, that's gone. Not out of bitterness, but because you've risen, you've elevated. You've become unreachable at the same emotional level they once met you at. This kind of transformation doesn't just stir nostalgia, it activates regret. And while regret may not look like grand apologies or dramatic confessions, it shows up in quiet ways. They check your stories. They scroll through old messages. They pause before reaching out, wondering if they even have a chance anymore. Because here's the truth. Avoidants don't miss what's always available. They miss what they assumed would always be there until it's not. And when they see that the door hasn't just closed, it's evolved into something higher, more sacred, more selective, they're left chasing not just you, but the version of themselves they could have been with you. And in that moment, you've already won, not because they're coming back, but because you never needed them to become this strong in the first place. Let's bring this full circle. What avoidants fear most isn't love, it's vulnerability, emotional demand, and the feeling of being consumed. So when you show up with anxious energy, when you overexpress, overgive, and overpursue, you're speaking a language they don't know how to hold. But the moment you turn inward, when you stop chasing, stop convincing, and start embodying peace, everything begins to change. You're not rejecting them, you're recentering yourself. You're not disappearing in bitterness, you're rising in self-worth. And in that rise, they begin to feel something they rarely allow themselves to feel, the ache of your absence. This speech isn't about playing games or using reverse psychology. It's about understanding emotional dynamics and, more importantly, understanding yourself. You're not here to be the one who constantly gives, bends, waits, and breaks in hopes that someone finally chooses you. You're here to choose you radically, deeply, unapologetically. Because when you shift from being emotionally reactive to emotionally anchored, the entire energetic field around you changes. You're no longer someone who's available by default. You become someone who must be met with intention, someone who commands respect without ever demanding it. And when the avoidant feels that shift, when they see that you're no longer clinging to potential, but walking boldly in your power, they miss you. Not just the presence you gave, but the energy you used to carry, your softness, your loyalty, Your warmth all suddenly scarce, and scarcity breeds desire. But now the tables have turned. You're no longer wondering if you're good enough for them. You're asking if they're aligned with the life, the peace, and the love you're now cultivating. You've become the one who walks away without slamming doors, who speaks volumes in silence, who glows in growth. That version of you, calm, grounded, emotionally sovereign, is unforgettable. That's who lingers in their mind at night. That's the person they compare others to. And even if they never say it out loud, even if they never return, you'll know one thing for sure: they felt you. And that feeling doesn't fade easily, not when it was real, and not when it came from a place of authentic power. So let this be the reminder: you don't need to beg to be remembered. You don't need to perform to be missed. You don't need to chase love to be worthy of it. When you stop trying to prove your value and simply live from it, you become magnetic. Not just to avoidance, but to anyone who recognizes what rare energy feels like. That's the secret. That's the power. That's how you make an avoidant or anyone miss you madly. By becoming unforgettable, simply by being fully, unapologetically you. Thank you for giving me your time, your energy, and your heart today. If something in these words resonated with you, if it sparked even the smallest shift, then carry that forward. You are not here to chase love. You are here to become the love that others rise to meet. Remember, your absence holds as much power as your presence when it comes from a place of self-respect. Keep rising, keep healing, and keep choosing yourself without apology. Until next time, stay strong, stay grounded, and never forget your worth. Thank you for listening. Goodbye and take care.